Great. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Anna Bishop-Rarig, and I lead marketing for Facebook Slideshow and other products. I'm joined here with Louis Tetzel, who is a creative strategist for the Creative Shop at Facebook and Instagram. We are super excited to speak with you today about building with mobile. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you through a few case studies, some ideas, and really our desired outcome at the end of this session is to have you feeling empowered, creative, and energized to go out there and build awesome creative for Facebook and Instagram. We will be taking live Q&A at the end of the session, so please use the window to input some questions for Louis or myself, and at the end of the session, we'll walk through maybe 10 or 15 questions. So with that, I'll hand it over to Louis, and we'll get it started. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Anna. As mentioned, my name's Louis. I sit on our Creative Shop team here at Facebook. Our primary goal as a team is to help our clients make the best possible work on the Facebook and Instagram platforms. We really want to maximize every single dollar that they spend when it comes to building ads for the platform. So as Anna mentioned, today we're really excited to talk about mobile as a production solution when it comes to creativity on Facebook and Instagram. I guess, seeing as you're here, you already know this, but we know that better creative drives better results that will ultimately increase the revenues you take in as a business, but also it's better for the people that we serve as a platform. It's really, really important and is fundamental in getting you the delivery of your ads to the audiences that you would like to reach. However, we know that when it comes to creative, there are often many barriers that exist out there, specifically around building that creative. We've been listening to businesses such as your own, and we've seen a number of different barriers here. Firstly, money. People say, I don't have the money to hire someone to make ads for me. Secondly, equipment. I don't have the equipment to make good ads myself. Confidence. Even if I have that money and equipment, I'm just not confident in my ability to make good ads. What is a good ad? And lastly, knowledge. I just don't have the knowledge of how to do it. There's probably also a fifth one in here, which is time. Even if you understand that creative is important, it does take a long time sometimes to get to the result that you would like. However, we see mobile as a fantastic solution for quickly getting to things that can upscale your creative quality. But traditionally, it has always been the case that when you think about great creative, you think about ad agencies. For instance, if you look at this campaign here, you may say, well, it needed a creative agency. It needed months in production, millions of dollars, a production team, a film studio, or even post-production editing crew. However, we see that landscape is changing. For instance, technology has played a tremendous role in democratizing creative production, and I wanted to explain this using a story about cameras. When we think about film shoots, and photography shoots in particular, we used to be in a world where we used film. And so when a model would walk into the studio, the director would often take photos, although he wasn't really taking photos. He was using the flash. And what this flash did was loosen the model up so that you could get all of the bad shots out of the way until they put the film in. He would then start shooting with the film. And what we've seen is that's changed. In the past sort of 10 years, we have seen a shift from film to digital. You now have affordable DSLR cameras, which are great. And this has helped democratize creativity. Before, if you wanted to spend a lot of money on expensive film, that was a huge barrier to you actually creating the photographs yourself. Whereas now, anyone can get an affordable DSLR. But we've seen it shift even further than that. For instance, camera phones now have a fantastic camera built into them. This is an example from shot on iPhone 6, where they actually took consumer-generated images and used them in their marketing campaign. Equally, there's fantastic cameras on the Samsung products, and there's just a really wide variety out there. So we've seen that shift. We've seen it from film to digital, but we've also seen digital develop and put the power in the consumer's hands. Equally, within inside those phones, there are a ton of apps that change the creative landscape for you. We have some examples here of some of the Instagram and Facebook-owned apps, such as Hyperlapse, Boomerang, Layout, the Instagram app itself, or even Facebook products such as Slideshow, Carousel, Video, and Canvas. All these are tools that increase your creative canvas and allow you to create things that weren't possible to create at ease and at scale before. We've even seen movies filmed on the phone. This is an example from a movie called Tangerine, which picked up an award at the Sundance Festival for a film. Again, you can see they're just using a phone in this. They're also using a Steadicam, which costs somewhere between $25 and $100, and there's a ton of different options out there. They, again, were really smart in terms of how they edited the film as well, knowing that it was shot on a phone. All of this is just to illustrate that technology really has played a huge role in putting the power to be creative in the consumer's hands, but also in the hands of businesses such as your own. So if we go back to that myth that great creative requires a huge agency, months, lots of money, lots of time, we actually now believe that you can achieve a similar result, for instance, with just a friend, a phone, and some crafty ideas, thinking about the format and the best way to use it. Now, what does this mean? What we're not saying is that you should not use an agency. If you have the ability to use one, absolutely use them. Because when you use an agency, you are not just buying better equipment, but you are also buying better expertise in terms of crafting ideas. That's not what we're saying with this. What we are saying, however, is that mobile is a fantastic tool for smaller businesses or businesses who would like to become more savvy in terms of it as a form to create. Cool. So we're going to look at two different strands of how you can use your mobile today to create ads for Facebook and Instagram. The first is remixing your assets, taking things that you already have and building them into your ads. Secondly, being crafty on a budget. If you want to build from scratch, how can you use your mobile to actually do this? How can you use the apps to really optimize your creative? So we'll start off with number one, remixing your own assets. So one way we have seen assets be used to be turned into ads is simply just taking a generic photo and remixing it. So this is an example here from a company called Peach Truck. They sell peaches, as I'm sure you can tell from the image. So this is something that they already had. They had this high quality image which showed the brand, its values, it showed the product, but they wanted to turn it into an ad. And they knew that simply running this might not stand out on the Facebook or Instagram feeds. So they used an app. They actually used here an app called PicLab to start to add in some of the text to get across one of their core propositions of gifting, and again to bring across some of the branding into this. A really simple fix to a plain image that makes it more ownable for them as a business. And if you look at how they did this, well, firstly, they downloaded the PicLab Studio. This case, it was $3 to $3.99. However, there are a ton of free ones out there as well that you can try that also do the same effects. They took the photo, they then chose their font, added the text, arranged it on the image, thought about its composition, and then lastly they added in a logo, rotating it, changing the color, etc. So you really do have powerful tools in these apps to help you just turn an image into an ad. But this isn't the only thing we've seen. We also saw a fantastic example from Stance Socks. Stance Socks sell a really wide variety. It's one of their core propositions that they have such a variety of compelling and quirky socks. However, they were running ads like this, simple product shots which were working very, very well for them. But again, they wanted to consider how they could up their creative game on Facebook and Instagram and better capture the audience's attention. So what they did is they used a product called Facebook Slideshow that allows you to put a number of images into what appears to be a rotating video and highlights your product catalog. So here they took the same shots from their website. They already had them shot, edited, and they were already existing. They placed them into the product that turned it into this looping video. And what's great about this is this simple solution decreased their CPA by 48%. It increased their CTR by 2.4%, and their overall return on ad spend went up by 1.48%. So it's very simple visual tricks that can help to bring your products to life in a more engaging way. And that's super important on Facebook when you consider that your main challenge is to grab someone's attention and get them to engage with your ad, but ultimately your product or brand as well. Another similar example here is from Jelly. So Jelly make these sort of clear, flexible skateboards, and they have a really amazing product range. Again, they did something similar to Stance. However, this time they didn't use the Facebook slideshow product, they used an app. So Jelly Skateboards here used GIFboom to take their product catalog and put it again into a looping video, but they sped up the pace a bit here. What you see is that it appears that the skateboard is now switching color, and they also added in text to this. So 100% clear, 100% California. They're getting across their proposition. But I think you will agree that it actually is more visual and thumb stopping than the previous images. So again, they took it in, they imported the photos into a GIF editor. Again, they use GIFboom for this, but there's 1,000 different ones out there, and I would really encourage you to download anything that you see, play with them, test them, try them, see if it fits for you. Again, they then added in text in this as well. Another use case in terms of remixing your assets is video. So this is a great example from Museum of Science. So they had this fantastic video that had been shot in super high definition, what possibly looks like 4K. It was showing many different panoramas, landscapes, and a lot of their budget went into making this video. But they thought, how can we push this further? How can we maximize what we already have, which we've paid money out to be made? So what they did is they took this one long form video and they edited it into smaller short form videos and then leveraged the Facebook video carousel to bring these to life. And now what this does is it takes that overarching asset and it breaks it down into the different experiences you might have at Museum of Boston, Museum of Science, where they have all of these different exhibits. Another example is with Pop-Up Plus. So Pop-Up Plus sell outfits for curvy women, and they had assets like this from their website, product shots on models also. Again, they wanted to liven this up and make it feel more on brand for them. So what they did is they used an app called Knockout. Now this app allowed them to cut out these specific people and place them on quirky backgrounds. I believe they got their backgrounds from Google, but they were searching for ones which had rights removed so that they could use any of them. And again, that's something to consider when you're thinking about using apps and other images. You need to make sure that you have the rights to create it. But you see here that they put these lovely summery outfits on lovely summery backgrounds, again, to make them pop out in newsfeed, feel more on brand, and back the proposition of what they were trying to sell, which is ultimately summer dresses. Also, they were smart again. In a similar way to Stance, they turned it into a slideshow, showing this rotation, bringing it to life as a video, and making it more visual. Equally, they turned it into a Facebook carousel, just to visually show the full spectrum in one go. And lastly, they used apps to further enhance it. So they used an app here called VidLab, where they actually were allowed to turn it into a video, add text which animated into the video, and also add their logo. Again, this helps it pop out, and we're seeing more and more video content be successful on Facebook at the moment. So there's just some of the examples that we've seen in terms of how clients and businesses are becoming really smart in how they can remix their own assets using their mobile phone. Firstly, we have 5 tips. So start with the end in mind. Think about what you have and think about what you want to create first. Then select an app based on that idea. So you may say, I want to make a video and I want to add text. Then you search for those apps which allow you to do that, and you test and learn with them. If you download a ton of apps, it might get quite messy in terms of achieving something that's going to be on brand. So think about that strategic piece first. Next, use your best photos and videos. And when we say best, we're thinking of high resolution images or videos that actually showcase your product or business in the best possible light. Fourthly, consider using multiple apps to get the finished product. For instance, we saw with Pop-Up Plus that they use VidLab after they'd edited it in Knockout. Think about what you're trying to create and then consider the chain of apps that you use to get there. For instance, I might want to add text in one app and then put it into a GIF creator to create a looping video. That is one example of a chain, but it will require you to switch between the apps and download the images in between each. Lastly, consider Facebook products also. Slideshow, with its increasingly large number of features, is a great way to turn your static ads into video. Carousel is and continues to be a great creative canvas that you can display your products and business through. And also the Facebook Canvas. This is an immersive ad product that allows you to fully showcase a wider experience of your business. So I would encourage you to look into those if you haven't already and consider how you could use your mobile to create for these products also. The second area we're going to talk about is being crafty on a budget. So I wanted to start with an example here. So these images look high quality. It looks like a very fancy kitchen. You have lovely marble or granite counters, rich looking food, fancy appliances. But actually think again. This was shot just using a phone, using some foam board, which I'll let someone else talk about more in a second. But again, it can be quite deceptive. It was very savvily put together, and that's what we mean by being crafty on a budget, thinking about what you want to achieve and thinking about the easiest possible way to get there. This doesn't necessarily require an agency or really large production solutions. It just requires a little bit of pre-thought. But I will let Ali Mafucci, who is the founder of Inspiralize, talk about this.
My name is Ali Mafucci, and I am the founder of Inspiralize. So I only use a few simple tools when I'm taking photos and videos, especially when I'm posting them for ads or something on social media. I have a foam board that I actually bought at a office supply store. I bought one at a grocery store, and then I bought contact paper online, and it makes the illusion that it's marble, which is a beautiful kitchen space, but really it's just cost me a couple dollars. And then I'll also use another foam board to bounce light off so that it looks more vibrant. And I always make sure to take all of my photos and videos near a window because you get that natural light really beautiful. And then I use a simple tripod like this especially for overhead shots or ones that I don't have a lot of space in my living room, so I'll attach it. It attaches really nicely. I'll hang it on a lamp or anything like that. And then, of course, I use my smartphone to do the video.
So that's Ali, and she's talking about all of the different ways in which she thinks about producing with mobile. She highlighted 5 bits of kit really: the phone, the apps it houses, a mini tripod which you can pick up for say $15 on Amazon, some contact paper on foam core, which again was really smart. It made it look like a very high-end, expensive kitchen top, but actually it was just paper. And then foam core to bounce the light to really focus in on your product. And lastly, a location with natural light. So what does that mean for Ali? Well, it means she can create things like this. These were made using the Boomerang app, and she actually wanted to make looping videos that highlighted her product in a more visual manner. These are really, really simple for her to do. The first one, for instance, she simply put it on her tripod, hit play, and then rotated the Inspiralize machine. On the second one, she moved the camera in and out. So what it does is it allows you to make your creative pop out in feed, and this is just one example of an app out there. But why should you care? Well, ultimately, it helped her drive tremendous results. This creative step change achieved a 3.4 times higher click-through rate. It was 11 times lower in terms of cost per click, and these ads actually achieved a 48x increase in clicks overall. She sold out 2 of her stores in the space of about a day. So creative really, really is one of the fundamental things in terms of ensuring your success on Facebook. And simple step changes can make a massive difference to your business. So it is very important to actually take the time to do this. And secondly, it's just fun to do this as well. This is an example of a company called Pescaria. So Pescaria have a small fish restaurant in southern Italy, and they've just opened a new one this week actually in Milan. And they have a really compelling proposition, which is they use fresh ingredients from the sea and place them in paninos. And they pride themselves on the fact that their paninos are very different to the standard panino, which you would get in Italy, of say ham and cheese. They really think about putting the ocean in their food. And this is an example of a boomerang that they made. Again, the same app as Inspiralize that creates these looping videos in almost a sort of jolty manner, which grabs people's attention. And you can see from how they shot it, they just used a phone, a person holding the panino over the landscape and moving it up and down. And they were trying here to actually associate that panino with the ocean, with Puglia, which is where they're from in southern Italy. And bring together the food with that. So a really simple execution. But they also had some other ideas. Here we saw they used Layout, an Instagram-owned app, to actually showcase their food. A great story about this business is that they have a Michelin-starred chef who actually won MasterChef Italy. However, he's working at this restaurant all the way down in southern Italy. And why is that? Well, because he puts a lot of care and attention into what he does, and he loves what he does. And the insight from this business was that he treated his food like art, and Pescaria really wanted to bring that to life visually. So how did they do that? And how did they create these, which looked like they were made by an agency? Well, firstly, they took a picture of the food on their phone, making sure it was well lit. They then brought it into the Layout app, editing it, where you can switch the ordering of the photos, add in different ones, flip them, rotate them, etc. This takes about a minute to do. And then they ended up with their final posts. But then they also went a step further, and they took these final posts into Final Cut Pro, added some transitions to allow them to rotate, to really mesmerize the viewer and draw them into their creative. Now, this whole process cost them $0, and the time investment to do this, to create the initial post, was about 30 minutes. To create the secondary post was about 3 hours. And when I say secondary, I mean the rotating ones. Again, all of the tools are there, and it's just getting out there, playing with them, learning how to use them, but ultimately learning about how they can fit your business and product or service best. This is another example from King of Pops. So King of Pops sell, as you can probably guess, popsicles. And we have two examples here of how they've upped their production game using video. So in the first one, you see they've made almost a stop motion where they've taken lots of different images, put them together into a video to create this illusion that the ice cream is bitten down. On the second one, they use an app called Quick to add these different colors and these different transitions and make the pop out even more. You can see with the different use of colors, it almost resembles the flavors that the ice creams or the popsicles might be selling. Again, there are more examples in terms of Facebook products. This is a 360 photo from Airbnb. What they do here is they took a panoramic photo on their iPhone. It's an option on your photo app where you can drag the camera from side to side and get a panoramic view. Again, it then allows the viewer to look around. So that's actually already on your phone. You don't even need to download an app for that, and you can upload it straight to Facebook as an ad or as content. This is an example from Sunbites, who are a really large brand in the UK. It's an example again of stop motion. For this, they would have attached a camera above the crisp packets, and they would have taken lots of singular photos and put them together in a line in a video editor to create the stop motion. Again, this is a really, really simple technique that helps to bring the product to life in a more visual way. And this here is a simple example of how you might do some of that stop motion. So there are a ton of apps out there to do this. You simply set up your phone or iPad or camera if you have it, position it, make sure the product is well in focus, that it's lit well. You then take one photo, you move the product slightly, you take another photo, move the product slightly, and continue this process until it all ties together to create a video. Now, there are apps out there that will make that video for you in the app, and you simply have to download. Another option, if you wanted to use a higher quality camera, is that you can take them on the camera, put them into a video editor, or again into another app, and it will turn them into a stop motion video for you. So it's really exciting what you can do here. Lastly, we wanted to talk about how you can actually up this quality even further by building your own mobile studio. So if you go online and you search now, there are a ton of different tutorials, home studios you can buy also cheaply that you can bring home and up the quality of your product shots, for instance. So here, you simply take a cardboard box, a ruler, some scissors, tape, tissue paper, white poster board, and a light, all household objects or things that you can acquire very easily. You then take your cardboard box, you cut out a 1-inch hole, a hole with a 1-inch border. You then do this on either side. You then place tissue paper around this hole so that when you shine light into the box, the light is diffused and you don't get too much shadow. At the back of the box, you then place a piece of white paper so that you can, again, create the illusion that this is an all white background with no shadow. And lastly, you then look at putting the lights in. So we always advise using white light or household objects. And so these go on the either side of the box where you've cut the holes out and the tissue paper is. You then place your product inside on this bended backdrop and start taking photos with your phone. Again, if you're thinking about doing higher quality product shots, this is something that you can set up once, leave in a corner of your business or your home and start shooting with. Or equally, you can look at buying one of these light boxes online as well if it's something you're going to do in perpetuity. This is just one example of how to make one also. There's 1,000 different tutorials, so I'd advise you to just go on YouTube, type in homemade light box or home studio and watch a few of them to get the gist. So what have we spoken about here? Well, our top 5 tips are obviously 1, play with the apps that you have, find a good location to shoot, think about different materials you can use. Most importantly, get yourself a good stand. When you're taking photos or thinking about stop motion, you really want to reduce the sway or the movement of the camera so that if you were, for instance, doing stop motion, you could move the object with the framing staying exactly the same. And a stand is really important to do this. If you are using the phone in your hand or the iPad in your hand and you're moving around, you might not get a higher quality result as if you had it standing still. This includes shooting video as well. And lastly, consider just getting some foam core to bounce light off your products as well. So we're speaking about 2 things today, remixing your assets and being crafty on a budget. The whole point of this webinar is that we really want people to go out there and experiment. And we genuinely believe that the creative barrier to production, especially for ads on Facebook and Instagram, has never been smaller. And so we encourage you to go and play with these apps and experiment, and hopefully we'll be seeing some fantastic content on the platform shortly. So I'm going to hand back over now to Anna, who's going to start looking at some of the questions that have been coming in throughout and that you may have, and we'll spend 5 to 10 minutes answering some of those that have come in.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lewis. I found that really interesting and hope all of you did on the call as well. So lots of great questions here. It's been hard to choose. Please do keep them coming as we continue the Q&A. But I'll kick it off with a question from Amber. She asked, most of the apps you mentioned are on iOS, so are Apple apps, but what about Android?
It's a good question. I think when you're looking at apps, don't be predetermined by this presentation. There is obviously an Android store, and there are many, many apps on both stores that you can download. As I said before, I'd think about what you want to achieve. If it's stop motion, I would search in your respective app store for a stop motion app, download the one that looks most appealing to you and play with it. If it doesn't have the desired quality or the desired output, then I would download another one. But there exist many on both stores, so don't be deterred by the fact that a lot of these are on iOS. But equally, a lot of these are on both app stores as well, so it shouldn't prove too much of an issue.
Great. Next question comes from Carl, who says, I follow Facebook and Instagram closely and try out everything, even the newest products that you release. I'm interested in Facebook Live. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to think about when you're thinking about any ad product is what is the objective that I'm actually trying to solve using this product. Now, if what you're selling or if your idea is one that's going to be brought to life more so by using the Facebook Live product, then I would absolutely use that product. However, when you go live, you need to ask the one question, why am I going live with this content? How is it building my business? How is it additive to what I'm trying to achieve? If there's a really good answer for that, then absolutely use that as an ad format. Equally, if it's not, and if it doesn't need to be live, I'd consider, well, what other products are there that are more fitting to the idea I'm trying to bring to life? So in short, think about the idea first, think about the objective, then the audience you're trying to connect with, and then lastly, think about, okay, well, what's the product to bring that to life?
Great. So I have a question here from Peter. When you said high res, what specifically do you mean?
When I say high res, I mean, in the simplest terms, images that are in focus and not blurry. So for instance, if you shot on a low res camera and then blew the photo up, so you expanded it and made it larger, it would lose resolution and it would be harder to see. However, when picking images, you might want to consider the ones which have the best quality in terms of their resolution, so that they stand out the best when people are viewing them on mobile.
Great. Question here from Nicola. Where could I buy supplies for the mobile studio?
So as I mentioned earlier, there's a ton of things out there. I'd search for a stand, etc. online. You might want to look at some lights as well, which you can buy online. Also, the Apple Store now have a fantastic section in there with a lot of this stuff, different lenses you can put on your phone, stands, lights, GoPros, for instance, as well. In terms of building the home studio, as I said, I would start to think about what ultimately you want to achieve. If it's a product shop, then I would look at building one of these perhaps. If it's service, I'd think about other apps or other techniques that I could use to bring this to life. So yeah, I think about your objective first. With that in mind, then start searching. But it's all out there, and that's the great thing. And it feels like a really untapped resource at the moment that we really want advertisers and businesses to start embracing, because there's just so much potential to make something great for not much time and not much investment. So it gets around a lot of the barriers we spoke about at the beginning of the webinar too.
Great. Next question coming from Sandra. What if I have a nice DSLR camera? Should I always use that instead, or what do you recommend, phone versus camera?
Again, if you have better kit, absolutely use it. A higher quality camera will take higher quality images. But equally, I would say that the camera on a phone now is fantastic. I showed the example earlier of the shot on an iPhone 6 campaign. Those images have been blown up to be on billboards, and they haven't lost too much of their image quality either. So the cameras in those phones are really powerful as well. But of course, if you have something better and want to use that, you can use it and then take those images either onto your desktop to edit, or you can take them into a phone. Simply upload them to your image library, download them onto your phone, and then play around with them in the apps as well. And you may want to do this, for instance, if you wanted to create video easily or add text, etc., which if you were trying to do on a desktop, you might have to use Photoshop or Illustrator. But if you want to do it more easily, you can just bring them onto the phone to do it in an app.
Great. Jenna asks, slideshow. You mentioned it for Facebook. Does it work on Instagram as well?
Yes, it does, which is great. Again, think about what the slideshow is going to be telling the audience. Is it a product variety? Is it telling a story? Are the images moving through time, etc.? But yes, it does work on both.
Cool. So we have Brian asking, how often should I change my ad?
I would change your ad as much as it needs to be. So when you think about Better Creative, what that does is it has a longer shelf life in terms of how long it lasts on the platform. When you leave an ad up for too long, it inevitably experiences an element of ad fatigue. That means its performance will drop over time, which makes sense as people have seen it, they've engaged with it. If they see it again, it's not as interesting as the first time, etc. However, the better the creative, the more interesting it stays for longer. So one, make the best possible creative you can, because when you have better creative, you have to change your ads less. So in the long run, it is actually more effective from a planning perspective. But secondly, if you see an ad fatigue, etc., consider changing it at that stage, but also consider what other audiences could I use this for? How could I change this ad to be applicable to another audience? So thinking about the assets you already have and maximizing their potential.
Great. Next question from Jessica, who says, in the very beginning, you mentioned a camera stabilizer or a device that you add on that the movie was shot on. Can you tell me more about how I find that product?
Yep, so that's called a Steadicam. And traditionally, they've been very expensive, used in really large-scale films. So the first one I believe used in a film was by Stanley Kubrick shooting The Shining. And he used it to get a shot of a child cycling down the hallway. And he needed it because he was following the child and he needed the shot to stay steady. And so they cost about $50,000 and obviously out of the hands of consumers. Whereas now you can buy them for your DSLR, so your camera, or also your phone for something between $25 to $100, if not more. And the reason this has happened is because we've got better materials now that allow them to be lighter, and therefore less cheap. Now, a $50 one versus 50,000, yes, the 50,000 one is going to be better, but is the $50 one 1,000 times worse? Absolutely not. I think for the modern consumer or business, you can get great results there. A great example would be Bentley, for instance, just shot a piece of content using just an iPhone and a Steadicam as well. And it essentially just reduces the sway to allow for a better quality image or video to be taken.
Great. So last question, I'll actually take this slot and ask one of my own questions. So Lewis, I found all of these examples really inspiring and just curious where you go for inspiration. How do you get inspired?
So I read a lot of different publications around advertising. I also look at what people in the industry are doing. So for instance, if I was a Facebook or Instagram advertiser and I was selling clothes, I would look at all of the different advertisers in my competitive space are doing. If, so, for instance, some of them are pushing the boundaries of video, I would then say, okay, well, this is the mark I need to get up to if I want to compete and grab people's attention. I think the best source of creative inspiration is to listen and to always be a student of the things around you, but ultimately be a student of your own product or business, because you understand that fundamentally better than anyone else. And so you have all of the tools in your own mind to bring it to life. And it's just those last few effects or, visual things that can really make it go from a 2 in terms of performance to a 10.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you found it informational and perhaps even inspiring, and really looking forward to seeing all of the great creative work that folks will create as a result. So thanks again. Thanks for joining, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.